The Terminator franchise is a tricky one. The first two films are all-time classic sci-fi action flicks, but every other entry has lived in their shadow since. But with this latest entry, the animated series Terminator Zero, we finally have something that I would say feels like a worthy entry into the canon. I really enjoyed it, and I want to get into why. Let's do this. Alright internet, the first thing that really caught my attention with this series is how disconnected it is from the films and the Connors in particular. I hadn't seen very much promotional material for Terminator Zero, so finding this out was exciting. I, for a long time, have been in the camp that the Terminator films have been too overly tied to the John Connor storyline. Radical take, I know. And in a way, it makes sense to be so tied to it, as he is the savior of humanity, but at some point you have to let go. Both recent attempts at rebooting the franchise as films still included Sarah Connor in a main role, either recast for a younger version, or set in a more current timeline to use Linda Hamilton. And on top of that, the third and fourth films are extremely John-centric. A lot of people have wanted an Old West set Terminator film, and especially how Prey set a Predator film in Comanche country, it seems like a great move, and while Zero doesn't do that much to depart from the source material in that kind of way, it still manages to feel wholly its own. And that comes not only by stepping away from the Connor timeline, but by embracing the fact that it is an anime. Co-produced by the anime studio Production IG and directed by Masashi Kudo, the series does not shy away from this fact. As far as the idea of a Terminator anime goes, it is both tonally and stylistically more on the side of anime than Terminator. Not to say that Terminator as a franchise, or even as a concept really, is not that far removed from anime, though I will say a lot of the negative reviews I have seen online are just fans of the franchise who don't click with anime. And that's fine, except when you are dicks about it, but that's not what this video is about. Now, I'm a more casual anime watcher than a hardcore fan, but this is still right up my alley. While not the dark, late 80s or 90s style of anime that my soul yearns for, the style of the show is still great. I feel like it is in line with Production IG's other works, like Psycho Pass, a series I've only seen the first season of, and I assume is the same for everyone else in the world. Don't tell me I'm wrong. Also, if you don't know anime that much, Production IG did the animated sequences in Kill Bill, and that stuff slaps. Like a lot of anime I love, Terminator Zero leans into the dark, grimy shades of cyberpunk-inspired sci-fi, making it a perfect fit for the franchise that already deals in that. Okay, back to the story. Zero takes the classic format of a Terminator going back in time to ensure Judgment Day and places it in an alternate, technologically advanced 1997 Tokyo. I think that change, both in general setting and in the world at large, helps to make the series feel fresh, even with familiar story beats. I will say I'm not trying to go too deep on spoilers in case anyone watching this video hasn't seen the show yet, but I do think that the show uses its kid characters well. The lead kids don't feel like three little John Connor stand-ins, so while they are being chased by a Terminator, it feels different enough to work. The kids lean more into anime kid archetypes than John Connor, but without feeling overly stock either. That probably comes from the fact that they were made by a Japanese anime studio, but written by an American. Also worth pointing out that there are some obvious reveals throughout, in particular in episode 4, that genre-savvy viewers will pick out right away. But I think that's fine. It is still well executed, and part of what makes them feel obvious is that they were properly set up beforehand. I won't call that a negative of the show, but worth mentioning. My major criticism comes from the pacing and structure. Terminator Zero falls victim to the same issues a lot of streaming television right now, where it feels more like a film stretched and cut into parts than a series. While not as bad as some of its peers, this show still feels like a lot of episodes just end on a cliffhanger while I think each should have a more full structure and not just be a chunk of story with a bit at the end to keep you watching. I think a part of what helps the show make it work a bit better is the action. Each episode having an action sequence they build to and come down from makes the lack of narrative structure in the single episodes land better. It's kind of like faking the feeling of a 3-act structure, even though an episode will only be like 1 point on one of those like graphics. When it comes to these pacing issues, I think the biggest effect it has would be on how, because of it, the Malcolm Lee plotline kind of feels like it's spinning its wheels for a few episodes at the beginning, where not much progress is being made because it all kind of needs to happen in the second half. I also know for a lot of people something like this won't really matter, but I'm kind of a nerd for this kind of story structure stuff, so I notice this a lot. I will say, for a legacy sequel, the show does not feel like nostalgia bait. It really took the general concept and robot design and used it to tell its own story, and I really appreciate that. More than anything, it feels like a breath of fresh air in the sea of remakes that we are currently in. The real question is, does this film take the top spot in the franchise rankings? No, of course not. Terminator 2 is still number 1. It is so fresh, both in what it did for the genre and the franchise itself, and Arnold as the hero Terminator really flipped everything on its head in a way that nothing in the series has been able to do well since. Not to mention the fact that its effects were groundbreaking for the time, and most of them look better than a lot of stuff coming out now. That said, I do think this is the best one since that. My nitpicks aside, I love the vibe of it, and the choice in not only making it an anime, but embracing that it is an anime, do hit a lot of solid points for me. It really gives the franchise the jolt it needed. Do I think more legacy sequels need to follow in its footsteps and be anime as well? God, no. I'm still firmly in the camp that we are getting way too many franchise films, and we need studios to focus less on that and start fostering new ideas. That said, this is still a fun watch though. Alright, I hope you enjoy this one. Leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already, and until next time, have a good one.